my podcast, Rediscover. Last time I promised that I would tell you some of the techniques I've used as I've tried to build a new life for myself and figure out how to date in this world of online dating and social media, and how to have a life that is new and fulfilling and enthusiastic and fun. So I will start with some of those techniques that I have used to help me determine what it was that will get me out of bed in the morning. So to begin with, I guess I also wanted to say, since we're going to keep it real here, the reason there's been a lag in my podcast is because my mother passed away on March 20th. I was getting ready to record this podcast when I had to fly to St. Louis because on her 88th birthday, she went into the hospital and never really recovered what she had lost. She had quarantined in her room for a year because of COVID and got depressed and stopped eating on a regular basis and probably stopped eating healthy foods even when she was eating. She also got bed sores from sitting on her bed, and she's a tiny woman with not much weight on her at all. And unfortunately, I didn't get those genes. But she developed a really severe UTI, which in the older population, it presents in different ways. She wasn't really in any pain, but I passed out, I guess, in her bathroom. And when she went to the hospital, they found out all these things were going on, and she just didn't have the resources to come back from that. So on March 20th in St. Louis, she passed away. So I was dealing with that and being with my family, flying back and forth to St. Louis a couple of times with my sons. So that's where I've been. And I have to say that I can tell as an older woman now, I was able to deal with that and also deal with having my family all exhibiting different kinds of grief better than I would have if I were younger. So there is a great advantage, I think, to being our age and having had so many experiences and understanding life so much better and being able to understand people better and hopefully be more of a force for good and more of a calming influence and letting younger people have their moment. I decided probably about 10 years ago when I was volunteering at my church that I didn't need to have the snazzy leadership callings, because I'd had my moments when I was in my 40s. I'd been in those positions already. I didn't need to do that anymore. I could let somebody else who's in their 30s or their 40s have their moment in leadership and have their moment where they could be in creative control of whatever their organization was involved in. So that's kind of the way I feel now. I don't need the same amount of attention as I did as a young girl, because it's time to let the younger generation have their moment in the sun. And we've already accomplished those things. So now we can just relax and be there for them, be their safety net, and hopefully have those nice kind of grandma qualities that nurture the younger generation without looking like a grandma or walking like a grandma or acting like a grandma whose joints hurt and who can't really walk and needs to go to bed early. Hopefully we don't have to do any of those things, give into any of that. We can take our vitamins and eat well and still look forward to every day, keep ourselves in good shape, and 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 hopefully be a great addition to our families instead of a burden. So today I wanted to share with you some of the things that I've done to help me remember who I was, because as I said before, I've kind of forgotten who I was and the girl that I used to be, with those kinds of aspirations and goals, and forgot about the things I was excited about. One of the things that helped me do that was to go back and look at my baby book. I am the oldest of 6 children, and luckily I have a very detailed baby book, which I thought I had here. I guess I didn't bring it out. And it even has a list of the first 10 pair of shoes that I have. My mother had a lot of time on her hands at that point. She wasn't working. She was living with her parents because my dad was in the Navy in Maine. So I have this very detailed baby book. And even though it might not tell me what I was actually interested in, because I was so young when she was writing that, and she was so young actually too, I think she was 22 years old, it just kind of reaffirmed my, what would be the word I would say? It just reaffirmed who I am. It validated my existence. Here I was. Here's a book about my growing up. Here are some little tidbits and little interesting little things that she noticed. And it just made me feel more grounded in myself when I read about what I was like as a baby, because I don't have, of course, memories back that far, except one. And it's kind of a dreamlike memory, so I'm not really sure it's real, but it's the earliest thing I remember thinking. And one of the things that was in my baby book, for instance, was that I hate to lose things. And I do hate to lose things. I always hated to lose things, no matter what age I was. It just seems like such a waste and so unnecessary. Another thing I've done to try to really find out who I really am, still back in the back recesses of my mind, because I know that person is still there, she just got covered up a little bit, is use this book. My sister told me about this book a long time ago, and then a friend reminded me of it. Let's see, lately. This is, when you record, everything is on the opposite side of what you think it is. So I apologize for this. So up is down, down is up. Anyway, the name of this is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She's written several books, but this is her most basic book. You can see where I've read it and made some notes. The book is great. The technique is what I wanted to talk about though today. So there's 2 things that always stuck out from her method to regain your creativity. But I think you can gain more than just your creativity back. You can kind of loosen up all that stuff that's been hanging around and clouding over who you really are. So the first thing she says to do is every morning to get up and write what she calls morning pages. And what those are just thoughts that you're having. It's like a stream of consciousness journal. It's not a journal that says, I woke up today at 6:30, got out of bed and did 30 sit-ups and 10 military push-ups, and then I finished off with my 20 regular push-ups, and then got dressed and left for work at 8 o'clock after having a really great, no, it's not that. It's more like when you wake up and think, oh, what's going to happen today? I don't know. So far, I feel kind of foggy, and I wish I didn't have to get up this early, but I do have to get up early, and now I hear the birds singing. Oh, the birds sound really good. I love waking up to the birds every morning. And basically what you're doing is just writing down whatever thoughts come in your head. If you're like me and have anxiety some mornings when you wake up because you don't know what's going to happen that day, I think this happens to people who've had traumatic things happen in their life suddenly when their life changes, and that certainly was me. Or they're in an insecure relationship. That was also me. Or I don't know, those are the two examples I can think of from my life anyway. You can often wake up and start feeling anxiety in the morning. And sometimes it's just kind of a general anxiety that doesn't really have a focus. You just start to feel those anxious feelings because what's ever stored in your brain way in the back is still affecting you now. So what these pages do, these morning pages, is it gets a lot of that stuff out of your head and onto paper. I have found that to be so helpful in my life. Also, to get it out of your head, if you can talk to somebody, knowing that you're not just calling them to have a casual friend conversation, but that if there's something that's really bothering you, to call somebody who you might call your accountability partner. If you're in a 12-step program, you might call them your sponsor. You might call your therapist, and just have a real heart-to-heart, being as vulnerable and as honest as you can about what you're feeling, getting those things out of your head, and speaking to someone else or getting those onto paper can be a real stress reliever. And I don't mean dumping on somebody. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having a really frank discussion about what is going on in your head. And if you are doing this with a really good friend or a sponsor or an accountability partner, they're not going to judge you for that. They're going to listen, because I can guarantee you 90% of the time they've had some of those same experiences and certainly those same feelings. But if you can't do that, a really good alternative is for anxiety, which is an enthusiasm killer and a creativity killer and a have a fun life killer, is to use these morning pages. Julia Cameron says that it's a good idea to write at least 3 notebook pages full of whatever it is in your head. It's like a brain dump. And if you do that every morning, you'll be surprised at the clarity of thinking that you begin to have during the day, and how much sort of relief you feel. One thing I noticed that I don't remember from reading this book before, probably because I was married the last time I read it, but they also refer to it, they have another name for it, but it's like find your mate pages, because a lot of times that when people write these pages, in about 6 months, they find, if they are single, they find someone and they fall in love. So I don't know what it does exactly to help in that way, but I'm assuming if you're getting rid of anxiety, you're putting out more, a better, I don't know what you would say, a better energy into the universe, or you're just a happier person. And we know that happy people draw happy people to them. And I'm assuming that's why it works, but I don't know. You could give it a try and let me know what you think. You can always leave a comment on my Instagram page. Look it up under rediscovHER or under Mary Beth Rosebrough. And you might find a couple other ones. You might find my personal page, or a page that I used to use for an Etsy shop I used to have called Grandpa's Pocket, but leave it in rediscover.her. And I'd like to see what you think. So morning pages, get yourself a book, a notebook, just a plain old cheap old notebook, because these aren't pages that you're going to want to review like you do a journal or save for your children to read when you've passed on. You can save them for a little while. And I think sometimes she refers to going back and looking at those pages, but I never do, because that's not what I'm trying to do with my morning pages. I'm trying to just get the junk out of my head and onto a piece of paper so I can feel free to go about whatever it is I want to discover or do that day. She also goes on to suggest one other thing that I really like, and it's called I think it's called an artist date. And that's where you take yourself on a date to somewhere that really feeds your spirit. For me, it would have to be probably somewhere that I don't usually go, because the places I usually go are just my humdrum life, the grocery store, or to, I don't know, when I need a new pair of earrings, or, I need a gift for somebody, just the usual places. But to me, an artist date would be taking myself to the beach, for instance, or taking myself to the park when I'm not there to do my walking exercises, but to just sit and look out at the little lake that is in the park where I go. Another place might be for me to head down further into South Florida and go to a museum, or go to a restaurant, or maybe go to a street along the beach that I've never really explored. Something that is just fun, and that is something that I want to do, but often don't give myself the time or the permission to do that, because it's just like playtime. It's just having fun and nurturing whatever natural desires that I have. So that would be the kind of thing an artist date would be. It's always a date by yourself. You don't need to do any online investigating or online dating for this date. Another book that, let me show you this book again, in case you want to get the book and read it. It's really an interesting book. She's a good writer, really good writer, and she has other books too. As I said, I think I've read several of her books. So another book that I really like and that has helped me in my life is called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. I don't have the books anymore because now most of her information is online at thework.com. And her method is really like cognitive therapy. Basically, you question the thoughts that you have. So if you find yourself with thoughts of failure, or thoughts of anxiety, or if you have a grudge against somebody, or somebody's made you mad, or you have a belief that's not serving you well, then you can work through those thoughts by following her method. And she has the pages online. The one that, let's see, there's two of them. One's called Judge Your Neighbor, and the other one is called, I think it's called One Belief at a Time. You can use either one. She says that they both end up in the same place. But if I were to use a page called One Belief at a Time, it would be something like, I believe that I should be thinner, and then I would be happy. And then you just start questioning that thought. Is that thought really true? Is that what I really believe? And you'll see if you go to that website that how she works through those thoughts. And I remember one especially that I did on some people at my church. And I really wanted to be friends with this one lady. I'm really telling on myself here. That there was a person that I really wanted to be friends with. And this person really just wouldn't, we were friends, but we just weren't that good of friends. I just couldn't take it to that next level where I felt like we were really friends that might, I don't know, go shopping together or have lunch or whatever, or confide in whatever, was happening. It just wouldn't go to that next level. So I did a page on her, and the page was so-and-so should want to be my friend, or should be my friend, or I should be her friend. And as I worked through the page on one belief at a time, what I found out was that after really having to think about my thought, why I really thought that person should be my friend, was I realized, this is embarrassing. What I realized is the reason I wanted her friendship was because I thought it was a stepping stone to other people that I thought were important and who I also wanted to be my friends. So the good thing about it, though, was after I found that out, then I was able to drop that desire and be more direct with the other people I really wanted to be friends with. So I didn't want to use her. When I realized that, I didn't want to use her. I don't want to use people for what they can give me. So I stopped my pursuit of that friendship, as I said, and went to the people that I really was my real goal, that I was really interested in, that I thought were really interesting people, and made my way to them. But that's the kind of thing that can happen. So instead of feeling that anxiety, which is that block, then I was able to get rid of that block and be more myself. And as I said, develop friendships with the people that I really wanted to be friends with, which was more natural then for me, because obviously she and I, although we got along, just weren't quite suited to each other. So it made that enriched in my life, because I was more direct then and wasn't spending my time over here when I really wanted to be over here. Okay, so what else did I have? Oh, the other thing I wanted to say, there's a couple other things, is that one of the things that you need to do, well, I needed to do, or what worked for me. I don't want to tell you what you should do. I just want to tell you what worked for me. And if it works for you too, that's great. Was to, again, slow down. When I talked about listening to your inner voice, I talked about slowing down and having some quiet time, because you cannot hear that voice if your mind is racing 100 miles an hour, because you're so busy. So in order to listen to your, I think I said that wrong. In order to listen to your inner voice and to find your real self again, it's really good to take some quiet time and just listen and ponder a little bit about your life and what you remember and what feels good. What makes you the happiest? What do you feel most peaceful when you're doing it? What do you remember as a girl growing up? What was your most fun activity? And start to write those down, and sooner or later you'll begin to see a common thread, and it will all begin to make sense to you. You can kind of see where your talents are and your desires and your enthusiasm for life. It'll come back. You just have to take a little time for yourself to dial the pages back and remember. The other thing that I have done is to listen to the people around me. I think I might have talked about this in an earlier podcast, or it might have been part of a podcast that I didn't like and ended up erasing. I can't remember. But One of the things that when I have actually prayed about this subject, one of the answers, or one of the little pieces of inspiration that came to me was to listen to the people around me. Now, I'm not talking about the people who are going to tell you what to do. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're just talking to somebody and they just happen to mention some fact, or they happen to mention something like, I don't know, you'll know it when you hear it. You'll be like, oh, yes, that was an answer to something that I need. Somebody just told me something that is an answer to one of the questions I was having, one of the concerns that I was having. For instance, the other day I was somewhere with a group of friends, and this lady happened to say that, I guess this was later on, she was telling me, because she knows that I've been out there dating, and she just happened to mention this. She wasn't trying to tell me what to do. She just told me what worked for her. She said that after she was, I think, divorced, she was dating around, and dated some different guys. So they were very nice. She got lucky. They were nice guys, but they just weren't for her. So after doing that for, I guess, several years, she finally just said a prayer and asked that if she were going to be single for the rest of her life, would she please have help in just being happy? And I think she even asked to be really happy. And then 6 months later, she met the love of her life, who I think she was married to for 17 years before he passed away. And they were really in love, and they were not young at all. I think they must have been around 50 when they found each other. So I thought that was a really good message for me to hear, and for all of us to hear. If we can't find someone to be our partner, we can ask in prayer to be happy. At least let us be happy in the station that we're in. And she said she was happy. She found herself being really happy. And I know for some of us, at least for me, in the beginning, I thought that was impossible. I just never thought that I would be able to find that kind of happiness alone. But I can tell you that that happiness is growing more and more each day. Me being comfortable being alone, confident being alone, and just being happy with the freedom that I have and that you have too. That freedom is no joke, especially if the reason that you're alone right now is because your children are grown and they're gone and you're divorced. The other day, I had a flashback to what it was like in some of the circumstances of my marriage. And I can remember thinking to myself, I haven't felt that way for a very long time, and I am so glad. Those feelings that I felt, or let me say, not having to experience those feelings anymore, makes being single totally worth it, because they were so painful. I felt so alone and so isolated and so powerless and so confused as about what to do. I felt trapped. It was just a terrible feeling, knowing that it just never got better, no matter what I tried, no matter how much conversation there was, no matter how much I tried to communicate, nothing worked. And those feelings were, I just felt desperate, I think is a way to sum up all those feelings. I felt desperate. And it made me, I was so glad that I had that little flash of remembrance, because it really made me stop and appreciate that I am not in that situation anymore. I was so glad to be single and have this kind of freedom, because the contrast was really great. So that's not really about rediscovering myself, but it's a way to get some perspective and be happy while we are in the process of rediscovering ourselves. So listening to other people can, I think God answers prayers through others a lot. And so that's why I think I'm supposed to listen to other people and pay attention to what other people are saying, instead of just kind of like when someone's talking to me or something, as I'm listening to a lecture or whatever, just kind of starting to zone out after a while when my attention starts to, go off in another direction. And so paying attention has become really more important to me, because I never know when somebody's going to throw out a little nugget of knowledge or a little nugget of information that's going to change my life. Recently, I went to lunch with a new friend of mine from my church, and she started telling me about her program of study at the university. And she is 59, so she's a little bit younger than I am. But that was really an answer for me too, because I had been thinking about the same kind of program and wondering like what to do, or what it would be like, how much they cost, and if it was really a good fit for me. And here she was, just giving me all the information I needed, just laying it all out. And I didn't even know she was in that program until I started talking to her, and then we went to lunch. So again, I think God was answering my prayer through somebody else. It really gave me something to go on, and some now background knowledge where I didn't have any before. And so going into something completely blind can be a little intimidating for me. I don't know about for you, but when I don't feel like I have at least some basis of knowledge about something new I want to try, it makes me a little scared. And when I get scared, I start to procrastinate, and that's never a good thing. So I think we're done with this portion of the things I've done to rediscover myself. Morning pages and the artist date, looking and reading through your baby book, having some quiet night, not some quiet some quiet time to reflect and slow down and think about those things that you used to love and that you still love, and how to put those all together, and paying attention to what the people around you say, what messages they might be giving you, not telling you what you're supposed to be doing, but just in their normal talking with you, they can bring answers to your questions and help move this process along in my life. But for now, I hope you enjoyed my story. And as I said, it's always good to talk to friends, put out there what's happening to you. So if you don't understand what's going on, somebody will help you. Please leave me your comments on my Instagram page, rediscovHER, or look it up under Mary Beth Rosebrough. And I will look forward to seeing you next time. This is Mary Beth Rosebrough, and this is my podcast, Rediscover.